Hello. Today we're going to talk to you about how we use Chocolatey for LabTech as a plugin inside of our LabTech framework here. Before we get really started, let me talk to you really quick about what Chocolatey is so you can understand what it does and how it works. And if for those of you that have already used Chocolatey before and don't have a good understanding, you can just kind of hit the fast forward button and go right through the next 2.5 minutes here. Basically, Chocolatey, what it is a framework that was developed by a couple guys out at chocolatey.org. Um, and it is a package manager for Windows. It's kind of if you have ever been in the Unix community or the Linux community, you'd be familiar similar to apt-get or Yum if you're doing CentOS or Red Hat. Type of package managers where from a command line you're able to directly install software and manage software titles and from various repositories across the internet and be able to bring those into your workstations and install them locally with little or no intervention from the user directly. All this stuff can be scripted and coded and programmed to install applications for you and manage those applications. There are several different types of repos that are available. There is a public repo that Chocolatey offers that provides standard kind of vetting of applications and services on there. Anybody can put applications up there, even you. Uh, Monitors of those applications uh, tend to maintain their packages over time. So as you use very common packages, you might find different software vendors of those packages actually maintaining the packages for you. So do a lot of research. Go down and check out chocolatey.org and read up about what Chocolatey framework is. Plugins for LabTech here, we have it's created a plugin that wraps around that framework and allows you to basically manipulate that framework in a mass quantities through your LabTech environment so that you can control and manage applications across the vast amount of computer systems with very simple few clicks inside your LabTech environment. So without any further ado, let's get on to Chocolatey for LabTech. All right, first off, we need to get Chocolatey for LabTech installed before you can use it. So you'll notice here in our little LabTech console, we have our plugins for LabTech website up. Over here, Chocolatey for LabTech is available, so you can come in here and click on it. Go straight over to the support link. And under the support link, you'll find both an exe installer package as well as a DLL. And if you have local access to your LabTech system, i.e. you can connect to your LabTech system in a local environment and hit the MySQL services locally, you can run this. Otherwise, you need to run this on the LabTech server where it can access the SQL instance for the exe. The DLL can be pretty much installed anywhere at any time as long as you have a LabTech console available to you. So we have a console. We're going to go ahead and download that. We'll click that, download it. When it downloads, it'll create a little zip package for us. We'll find that zip, go up and unzip it, and when we do, it'll create this little DLL package we have here. All right. Before we actually install the DLL into our LabTech system, I suggest that you look to make sure that the security on that DLL is not set. If it is, it'll prevent you from installing it into the LabTech system, and the LabTech system will burp up a bad error and say it can't install. So quickly, right mouse click, select properties on the DLL. It brings up this little window here. If you have an unlock here checkbox or button, go ahead and select that and hit apply to unlock that DLL. Usually it will have a little text here. It'll say, this is done because of security reasons. It was downloaded from a remote site. All right. So once you have it unlocked, we're going to go to the help, select plugin manager. All right. And we're going to go in advance plugins, and we're going to add plugins. When we do, we'll browse to this plugin. Find it here, desktop. Here we go, desktop. Get it? All right. Now, here you'll notice that it already sees that the version's installed because I have previously installed it already, so it's already sitting up here. So at this time it's asking me, do you want to just update it versus actually add it? We know it's already there. We're not going to do either, but it would have popped up a little box and said, go ahead and install it. You do it, it would show up here. You'll need a right mouse click and make sure that the Chocolatey is enabled. All right, once you do that, it'll turn this one from a red X to a green. All right, and we will need to make sure that we load the database agent again. Once we do that, we'll come over here, select Reload Database Agent. All right, that will come up and say, do you want to continue? Yes, and down here, you'll notice the database agent will start to reboot. We need to let this finish. Once this finishes, we can then close down our window here, close out our console, and restart the console. We should be ready to use Chocolatey. Okay, our database agent has completed successfully. So we'll go ahead and close this out. We'll close this down. Yes, we'll close our control center. Go ahead and relaunch our control center. Should now be loading. If you'll notice here, it'll say loading the plugins. It should be now loading in the new Chocolatey plugin. There it is. Okay, excellent. And we are open. And you should now have a Chocolatey for LabTech listed here underneath your view menu. Select that. All right, excellent. By default, you get 5 agents for free. So you can apply Chocolatey for free forever to 5 agents on anywhere on your network that you like, and use Chocolatey any way you see fit, testing out our plugin, see how it works and operates, and be able to use it. It'll show up because it's in demo mode. So you haven't actually deployed any yet, so you'll end up with 0 currently deployed. Everything is in an off state. We start off automatically by being off, so you need to be prepared to set some different items up and configure it before it actually turns on, starts automating application installs. One of the first things I suggest you do at this point in time is take the moment to adjust your scheduling. I would toggle this back and forth to whatever settings you want, making sure that you do an actual toggle because it enforces that setting gets set at this point in time versus it possibly remaining a default or nothing at all. And if it turns out to be nothing at all, the automated services in the back end just don't run. And so you're wondering why things aren't working when in actuality, just coming over here and toggling out your cycles usually resolves any of those hiccups in a new install. So we'll go to 1, we'll come back, set that to 24. Now we have 3 different cycles here. Each cycle represents a different service running in the background that is going to do work for you. All right, and part of the automated processes. All right. Maintenance cycles are responsible for making sure that enabled agents have Chocolatey installed as a framework, and that any software that has been installed through Chocolatey, that Chocolatey can install, update, or otherwise sees locally on the machine is brought into the LabTech systems database and version so that we know what version of each software that it already sees installed that it's going to be able to manipulate as a package, and what versions those packages are currently at. Right. This at times confuses certain people because they weren't maybe aware that that system might have had Chocolatey previously installed on it at some point, or they may have used our original Chocolatey 1 program, which also installs the framework and allows you to one-off install applications. And so some of those applications may remain, and our Chocolatey for LabTech plugin will pick up all those previously installed applications that Chocolatey framework sees. So the maintenance cycle handles that. Before applications can be installed, maintenance cycle needs to run twice on a machine. The first time it's going to run, it's going to install the Chocolatey framework. Second time it runs, it's going to go through all the versioning and validate the path and make sure everything's good and clear for applications to start getting installed. That normally is why we set maintenance cycle for more often than we would our installer. Now, our installer scheduler here is the service that goes out and says, what do you as a client have approved for software and what machines are missing what? This is why we have to go through all the versioning and such, is because we don't have an accurate application list yet for each PC that has the framework installed. So until that framework is installed and the application lists are built, we don't know what needs to be installed, what might not be installed. So we normally typically set applications to install every 4 hours or so. Maintenance usually runs 1 to 2 hours. So maintenance is running more often than application installers. Then our third one is application updates. Typically, we only want to check for updates and run updates once a day. So in this instance, I typically set it at 24. Other people might want it to run twice a day to make sure that they're catching online systems. So setting it to 12 hours is also acceptable as well. You can set it to 1 hour if you want to. Not a problem. It just means you're going to be every hour telling that machine to go out and see if there's an update. That could or could not be loading on a system that has a significant amount of agents. So this is kind of typically the setting that I have starting out with, knowing that within 4 hours of a system coming online and being available, it's going to get applications that need to be installed. We're not in a huge rush to get those applications installed as long as they're installed same day. So we go to a client, we deploy an agent to a client. That client's enabled, that agent becomes enabled as part of it, and those applications then flow down to that agent automatically within the 4 hours that agent comes online, expecting that the first hour or two, the maintenance cycle has run on the agent and gotten through the framework and versioning. Right. We have a global server exclude button. That's basically what this does here, is globally exclude servers from the entire system so that you can prevent Chocolatey and its framework from going on all servers. Right. That really is up to you and how you want to use Chocolatey and what kind of applications and what your policies that you're setting up relative to how you want your applications to flow down to the machines below you. We typically don't have any problems installing on servers. It works quite well. And as long as we're controlling what applications we're pushing to those servers, we typically only have the most common technical tools and things of that nature going down to those servers. You can install things from like SQL or IIS packages or PHP or several other server grade level softwares onto your servers using Chocolatey. So if you can think about that, take a look at chocolatey.org's repos and see what softwares are available. I hear there's about 3,800 software titles out there now, so it's getting kind of thick. Anyhow, we start off as off, so both of our master controls are off, and these master controls control the entire Chocolatey system. So at any time you get into a panic mode and you want to shut it all down, make sure nothing's running because you don't know what is getting installed or what might be getting pushed. You made a mistake and you're having a large amount of applications going somewhere where you don't want them to go and you don't want it to continue. Okay, you can come over here and just master off the system. All right, and it will, and while this is off, nothing takes place automated on the system. You must have this turned on for auto updater to work. This turns on auto updates automatically. So although you have an update cycle set, if this is not turned on, updates don't take place. You must be on as a master on for auto updates to be on. You can't auto update without the master, because the master is the thing that sets the framework. Make sure that versioning is taking place and all that's happening on the back end. And we can't do updates unless we know the framework is there and that everything on that machine is working correctly within the Chocolatey environment. So this is required for this to work. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to, before we move on, let's go over here and talk about auto updates. Auto updates, plugin will auto update itself as needed as we release new updates and services. So you'll notice your version here. If you want your plugin to auto update itself, come over here and turn it on. I suggest it. Normally it's a good idea. It keeps any bug fixes and features keep it fresh into the system so that you're getting them regularly and getting those new features and keeping the system up to date with any repairs or problems that we found. Before we do any turning on of any of the systems, we're going to go set the entire system up and then turn it on. So we come over to approved apps. We have a choice to add apps one at a time based on going to chocolatey.org, which if we click this button here, it'll open up a window here. There you go, chocolatey.org. It allows you to go to packages, and here are a list of all your packages. Look for the green dots. The green dots are going to tell you that these are vetted packages and that you can there's a trust factor available for that particular package. Keep in mind, these are public repos, and as such, different maintainers maintain packages. There's probably a lot of maintainers, as well as the software developers themselves that actually create the software packages that you see here. They can also maintain their own packages. So to install, we need to capture the command that installs that package. This is the command. We're looking for that one word that tells it what package we want to install. So we can copy this, come over here and say, I want to install Google Chrome, call it whatever you want, friendly name. Then come over here and paste that in there and approve app. Now, we have a couple extra switches here, so let me explain what these two switches are. First off, if we get it from the public repository, we do not need to fill out any of this information because the repository does not require username and passwords, and it doesn't require a source. If you are going to use third-party repositories, use your own repositories, or use the new business level services that are coming out with the Chocolatey service, if you read chocolatey.org, you're going to be able to pop in other repos, your username and password, and access software bundles from any repo. But in this case, since we're using the public repo, we do not need to fill in any of this information. If we select the as admin is a function that changes how we tell Chocolatey to deploy the application. Instead of sending commands straight down to the agent saying, as how LabTech is running as agent system, or if you set up a LabTech user to run the LabTech agent service, we install based on that service grade. So whatever you have your agent running as is how we pass commands down, and those commands run as that service agent user. So sometimes most of the time, that works great. Occasionally, we find packages that have special requirements in the package that need more of a user level install to take place. And so what we have done is we've allowed you to select as admin here, which will then force the install of that particular package through a LabTech script. That script will then be scheduled on a machine, and inside that script, the package will be passed to it on what package we're trying to install. Right? It will then use that script to check to see that the user is logged into a console and that console 0 is being used. And then on console 0, it executes as admin the Chocolatey command to install that package. All right, and so this is just another attempt to install Chocolatey in a method, or to install packages for Chocolatey in a method that will allow the package to install properly and apply to a particular open user. All right. This is mainly was created to help us get around several Java-related issues that we were finding causing problems with generic Java installs with several of the Java packages. You can also pass switches in the application command. So if you read up on Chocolatey and some of the extra switches that you are able to pass a particular package, you could add those switches here and give it another friendly name, and that way you can have multiple Chrome package types available, or Java for that matter, package types available, and then approve different packages for different clients based on the needs of the client and or the package. So you have some very good flexibility with being able to kind of play around with how you're pushing out and deploying packages. Typically, the majority of the stuff is pretty straightforward. You need a friendly name, a command, and you're ready to go. Auto enable. By default, once you have clients enabled and set up in Chocolatey to run, if you come in here and add more packages to the approved package list, by default, those packages are disabled for everybody. Reason is, don't want you going in here and adjusting a package list, and all of a sudden, bam, 30 seconds after you add it, everybody in your organization has it, and you only wanted one client to get it. So by default, we disable that so that it can't go out to everybody. In the instance that you want it to go out to everybody, we have the auto enable feature here. By selecting this, you change the default behavior of the package you're adding. By default, all packages added after systems are enabled are disabled by default. This will change it to where they will be enabled. That way, all systems will start getting that as soon as the cycle that we've set here for the installs kicks in. Okay, so here we go, boom, boom, boom. Let's just leave it just as it is and add our application. When we do, it populates here, and there we go. We have a basic application added to our approved application list. Now let's say we didn't like that. We want it out of there. All right, look down here, double click the application, we'll remove it. So if you come here and just double click it, bye-bye, it goes away. App's no longer approved. So easily add, easily remove an app. All right. We create a seed button here. This is usually used first time you launch Chocolatey and you just want to seed your application list quickly. You know that you want all the generic basics that are commonly applied and then pick a few extras that you want. But you don't want to sit here and spend 40 minutes adding in 12 or 15 different applications trying to find them and what the commands are. So we created this common apps, add common apps to app lists. All right. So typically you run this the first time, then you don't run it again. Because it will, if you run it twice, it'll just duplicate the apps. It won't, because it's going to assume that any friendly name you have in there and any command that you have in there, if it's not in there, it's going to reproduce it again. So you're going to end up getting your huge app list that you'll have to manage. And if you have it, you can't auto enable this. So when you add this automatically by default, since it's being as a new tool, as a starter tool, it enables all systems by default. So this does not disable those by default like this does. Where you add applications here by default, it's disabled. Here, this app list by default is enabled because we're assuming that you're using this tool to start the process of building your Chocolatey service. So let's go ahead and use it. Boom, hit it. Yes, it'll say we're now going to populate your list. You ready? I'm ready. There we go. So we got this huge list of software, probably 15, 20 titles. Now we get to choose what we want, what we don't want. So obviously, you're not going to want all of this. You know, you may be, but not technically. I don't typically throw out Firefox, so I get rid of that. I do like Flash Player, Chrome, Java 8. Notepad++ is always good for me. 7-zip, Adobe Reader. I don't need the VLC viewer. I don't need CCleaner. I don't need Hotkey. God, I don't need Skype. FileZilla. Dropbox, don't need that. I'm not worried about Process Explorer. Shockwave, care less. Don't want Malwarebytes. Thunderbird. I don't need these either, really. Don't really care about any of that. So, all right, here's my nice little clean app list. You know, some basic tech tools that I would use in the back end to access, you know, and do different things that I might need to do. And then the client gets Reader, Java 8, Chrome, and Flash Player. So everything's happy, looks good. We've got a nice little global apps list going here. So let's work with that. Over here, global exclusions. You might have 100 customers. You might not want everybody installing Chocolatey. Maybe you only want 1 or 2 clients. So come in here and exclude your clients. Everything is exclusions here. It's an exclusion on, it's an exclusion off. You'll find that reference throughout the system. It looks for excluding because it's going to typically think that you want application management everywhere. So it's going to kind of assume that we go here, you want to exclude, which shrinks our footprint. So exclude all, select this little checkbox, it'll go through. It takes it a minute depending on the number of clients you have because it has to go through and just make sure that each PC is disabled as well. So it'll go through and individually mark each one of those PCs as well as each client. So it takes a second. Up in this little area here, there is some textual information that takes place while you use this. Select it, you'll see bomb processing, Squidworks is now excluded. Click it again. Processing Squidworks is now currently approved. So by not having a checkbox, we are approved for installing software. So we will be included in Chocolatey's services. Right? We have no stats, no deployments, or logs. We're going to have some logs maybe depending on how long you've been sitting here because you can see maintenance is kicking off. Maintenance, if you'll look at your time frames here, auto updates run at the top of the hour. Maintenance ran at the top of the hour. Maintenance is running again at the 10. Let's see here, maintenance off. So you can see here we're bouncing around as it's going through checking to see that we are in maintenance off mode. Master switch is off, so nothing is taking place while in maintenance or in updates while we are sitting here configuring the system. It's just sitting there in a cycle going, nothing's taking place. All right. We've now created some applications. We've adjusted our client list for who is going to get apps and who isn't going to get apps. All right. And now we can go to our client. Here we go. We'll have a Chocolatey for LabTech at the client level. We can see our approved app list has showed up. We can see that all our excludes are off. All right, so we are not excluding this app from this client. If you do not want the client to install this app, then turn the exclusion on. Double click the little icon there, it'll turn on. You can also right click and select include or exclude so that you can get a clear understanding. I am excluding this, I am including this. Okay, so at this point, this client will get Google, Java, Notepad, 7-zip, Adobe Reader, PuTTY, curl, and widget, but will not get the Flash Player. All right. Seeing that our master server flag is set to not allow server installs, you'll notice here that this flag is automatically set as well. So we are excluding server installs. We have no system showing up because until the framework takes place, this is going to be empty. You're going to get no system options for any system because you can't set a system option if there's no framework. And you're not going to show what systems are enabled because none of them show the framework. So as long as they don't have the framework, they're not enabled. So until you get the framework on there and it versions the system, it's not going to show up here in this list. So we need to get the system cranking and going, watch it do the installs, and voila, they'll start showing up in this list. Same thing here. We have no systems showing up in the list. So no systems here. We have no systems to apply any applications to. So we have no application list. We have no system list. Once our system list populates, our approved application list will populate. We'll then be able to install and manage the systems as they come online. You'll also start to see here all the different softwares that are installed per agent that are currently on the system. If for some reason we need to quickly get going and we don't want to wait for the maintenance cycle to kick in and get started, we can force a framework deployment across the client. This will basically, clicking this button, will go and look at every machine in the system minus the servers because we've disabled servers, and start the process of trying to deploy the framework. All right. Once the framework's deployed, it'll be talked back to the system, let it know it's here. It should start showing systems populating in the list. Typically don't need to do that unless you're like building out a new client and you're trying to get it going fast so you can get in and out of a client or something of that nature. Or you brought a new client online and you don't want to wait the normal 4 to 8 hours that you have set up. You want to kind of get it going now. You can do that. Because once you get the framework installed, you can start pushing out software to them right from this interface, allowing you to manually push software right now versus waiting for the application installer, which you may have set to 4 to 8 hours to kick in and install apps. So again, it gives you a means to kind of start to deploy things if you needed to and not wait for the automation to take place, right? But it will need time for all that to happen. Scrubbing a client means telling it that you want it to remove all the applications that you've installed with Chocolatey and the Chocolatey framework. So scrubbing a client is going to basically clean him of the Chocolatey services. Right? It attempts to. Offline machines are obviously not going to get cleaned. Depending on how long they stay offline during the cycle process. They will attempt to try to get it to them, but if it can't, then you're going to have to manually handle that. It also doesn't really take in consideration for significant failures. So if it fails to uninstall a particular app during the process, it's not going to go back and retry that app before it removes the framework. It will just drop the framework once it's tried all the app removals. So that will be a quick way for you to clean out and get rid of clients that are using your Chocolatey services. Uninstalling an app, basically, when you have machines here that gives you a machine list and the application list, you can install and uninstall apps straight from that list and to that machine listed in here. You also have an all machines here listed so that you can push out an installed app to all, or a approved app to all machines using the same process, or uninstall that same app from all machines through a selection here. System options, once they show up, you have the ability to include and exclude systems individually, both from updates and installs. So if you have a client, you've approved only workstations and excluded all servers, and then you find that you want to also exclude several laptops, you can come into this list, find those laptops, and select the exclude installs and exclude updates. And that will cause that laptop to, or whatever system you select, not to install and or update applications on that particular machine. So you can basically exclude them from Chocolatey's environment after they've been categorized here. You can exclude them from any of the installs and updates that you have in the system, basically preventing them from doing any updates. This is a global setting at the client level. All right. We give you also 4 options that you can set that are functions of the framework. Auto uninstall, checksum check, global confirmations, and fail on uninstalls. All right. These are all different feature flags that you can set at the Chocolatey framework to provide different functionality for the framework as it goes along doing its work that you assign it. The big one that you're going to want to really identify with right off the bat is the auto uninstall. This is a extra added feature that should normally be turned on. You can turn it on at any time and also, turn it on just prior to any uninstalls that you might try to attempt. This is basically a tool that's inside of the Chocolatey framework that helps it work with uninstalling packages that may not have really clean and good uninstall processes and functions within inside the package. So if a kind of a lazy maintainer didn't really put out a package quite tight and nice and clean with all the little pieces that are needed to not only install it, but to then remove it and manage it after the fact, then this tool helps work to identify those in the registry and some other things that it does to identify those apps. So during an uninstall, it can clean and remove that app appropriately, even though the maintainer didn't really make a great uninstaller. So safe to run, does not hurt anything. I would suggest that you normally typically have those turned on. You can turn them on and off at will, and it will not affect anything that a package previously has done or hasn't done. And if you just make sure that it's on before you do an uninstall, you usually get really good results for uninstalls. So keep that in mind. We talked about system software, systems options, client configurations, all looks pretty good. We can now, let's go down to the computer level. We can look at the computer level. Again, we haven't turned anything on yet, so we're not going to have any data or anything going on as of yet. We're going to get into that in just a minute here. You'll see here that we're excluded automatically at the client, at the computer level, because we were excluded at the client level. So you can identify that that takes place. Now we can override this if we need to by just unexcluding it here, and it will unexclude that. Okay. Now you'll notice up here we had some text up here that talked about this machine basically hasn't run the framework yet, so you can't really do anything here, which is accurate. Until we get the framework installed and versioned, nothing's going to really work or show for you. It really starts to take function and shape once the framework gets installed. So we have the ability here to do just that, deploy the framework and get things going. So if you need to come on here and fire off framework on a particular machine, you can do that. Once you fire off that framework, it will enable it and license it based on the license count that you have above. You also have the ability here to one-off install applications. So you don't have to be tied strictly to the approved applications list. If you have a machine that you need to install some extra chocolatey stuff on, you know, that you want one at a time. Oops, sorry about that. We have an air show and some dogs, so it might get a little noisy at times, cause them to get barking. Anyhow, get back to what we were saying. We have ability here to install one-off packages straight from any source, any repo, username and passwords available here. Create a new package name, create installs, and install applications directly to the machine at any time. You'll need the framework deployed, of course, but once that's done, you can come in here and just quickly install applications that you may want to have on this particular machine straight from this window without the need to access the machine directly or go through the approval process going into your global approved apps list and enabling it and going through all the processes to get an application on a end machine that you just want on a particular workstation. Now we need to get this thing turned on. So now that we've kind of figured it out, we've got it all laid out here, we know where everything is at. The first thing we want to do is get back to our master view here and turn this thing on. So turn that on and turn that on. All right. We're going to start to see as this thing takes shape, we can start monitoring the log tab here. It will take it a while because we've set our cycle here to at least 1 hour, so we're probably going to need about 2 hours or so for this to complete, and we start to see installs taking place and licenses used and applications going around. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pause at this point, and we're going to come back to this in 2 hours and see where we're at. We'll be able to monitor the logs, take a look at those, and get a good view of what took place and how we used my 5 licenses here. Okay, time warp. An hour has passed. Let's see how everything's looking. Well, as you notice here, we have 1 license that's been deployed. We can come in here and take a look. See, yeah, there it is. It's got Chocolatey version 99.12 installed on it. We're good to go. Now, you'll notice only 1. Well, we turned servers off, and out of the 1 customer that I actually have 2 workstations. 1 workstation happens to be offline currently. So in the end, in the last hour, it only saw 1 machine online. We can take a look at our logs. There we go. Agents licensed for 5 agents. It started, cycles completed, installing Chocolatey on computer ID number 3. And off it goes. So there we go. We can actually see right there, blippity blip, maintenance is kicked in and found the machine, installed Chocolatey to it. Go over here. We now have a deployment, so we can look at our client. We can see that we have 1 machine in that client. We select that 1 machine, and voila, we get the data for that machine. We also notice that that machine's online. We now have functions we can do here, like open computer console, update applications, install applications, excludes, and so forth. So we have a bunch of neat things that we can start doing now relative to working with that particular machine. We also have stats showing we've got 1 application installed currently so far, Chocolatey. We've got 1 Chocolatey version deployed across our infrastructure. And so far today, we've had 1 application installed, which is the Chocolatey framework. Now keep in mind that, as I explained earlier, maintenance needs to run twice. First time to get the Chocolatey installed and versioning done, and then the second time to clean up all the little tidbits of maintenance that need to happen on that machine prior to it installing applications. Then the application manager that's going to be managing applications is currently set to 4 hours. So we're going to bring that down a little bit for our demo so that it will happen pretty quickly now that we've got Chocolatey installed. And that will allow us to kind of see some apps take place. In the meantime, while we're doing that, let's come over here and let's open the computer console. All right, let's close it down because that's an old one left open. Let's reopen it, get it fresh. Okay, here we go. LabTech. There we go. Chocolatey. All right, now notice we did not get any warnings up here that the machine's not prepared. We also, our install button is now available and working. We show an application installed in the system. Chocolatey is currently installed, and what's going to happen next is over the next course we're going to see these applications become installed on this machine. So we'll close this one. Let's go take a look at the client console. There we go. Let's go ahead and close that, get a fresh one up. Here we are. Select LabTech. There we go. And here you'll now see that systems have been analyzed, and they know that these systems now exist and that there should be options being set for them, whether they're excluding them or not. You'll notice servers are in here, and even though we're excluding servers automatically, everything's going to show up in the hit list here, and it's going to allow you to to operate now that this client has enabled and services are starting to go out to this client. So we can now exclude installs and exclude updates if we want to for a particular machine. If we don't want it to be involved, we can also toggle on and off or auto installs and uninstalls. So maybe with Squid Dev, we might want that on. You can see you're updating on install feature on Squid Dev. This is actually taking place live. You can see that through same means here. Select that, open computer console, and look at the commands tab. There you go. Config's already set. So it was trying to change it right there, enabling the feature. Came back, configuration was already set, so we're in good shape there. And you'll notice that we are on here, so the config option is now on here. So we are in good shape. We can now, you'll now notice that this is filled out. All right. We can now select all systems or only system that's available because it's installed. All systems would only equal this system because it's the only system in the list that has the Chocolatey framework installed. We now get all our applications available to us because we now have systems that we can install to. So we could go all systems, install 7-zip, all right, and click install. And it would force all systems live right then and there, show you, and it would go out and tell you up here what it's doing to install 7-zip on this system, on those systems, and they push that out. You could also send uninstalls for that. You could just select a system and do the same thing, install or uninstall. So now let's go ahead and go back into time warp hiatus, and let's let it sit another hour now that we have set the main system here to 1 hour on installs. That means that within the next hour, we should get a install kickoff and be able to come in here, see that take place here in the logs, also be able to see that displayed here and everywhere else that we have that information and be able to see that that actually takes place. So let's do it. Okay, back from time warp. You can see here we've refreshed our logs and we are now at the top of the hour starting to install software. We are seeing that we are, based on our policy, we are not to install certain applications, and others we will. So it will go through and start firing off based on what it sees needs to happen and start firing that out to each machine. So currently we've got one computer ID getting kicked out. So as it goes through, we can refresh and you'll notice it just keeps dumping those logs out. So we can just kind of follow along with what it's doing. And as you can see, we are installing right away. Looks good. Awesome. Nice. Very good. So we should be able to come back here and voila, highlight our thing again, and bam, we've got software installed. Now you'll notice no versions. All right, maintenance needs to run again for it to reversion all the software that's installed. That's when you know for sure that that software is installed correctly. It's going to have a version by it. Right now, the system knows that we're in the process of installing those softwares. And as such, they should be available to the user at any moment if they're not already there. But until our maintenance cycle runs again, we don't guarantee that they're there. They're not verified. So we're going to go through and version them on the maintenance run. So expect that to happen. So that's why that you're right now your versions are blank. We should be able to go ahead and open up the computer console, this one again. Let's go ahead and closing and reopening. Go back to our Chocolatey window. All right, software, and look at that. Same software list is there. So again, without the versions, but we can now uninstall and update it automatically if we need to, just by clicking a button. We can add new software now that's available to us, so we can add new packages right off, one off if we want to now. This system is under automation, and so as these things get updated, it'll get updated. So we are in good shape. That is how Chocolatey is supposed to work. At this point, As systems come online, licenses will be eaten up until we hit the total number of 5 current licenses. And when we hit 5 licenses, Chocolatey will stop trying to install anymore. So I can either have let servers install and let it go out to all the different servers, which would incorporate another 4, or actually at this point would incorporate, what did we see there when we went to the client level? Client, where's our client? There we go. At the client level here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 licenses here we can use. Or bring another computer online or another company online, enable that company, and it would start going through those machine lists and enabling licenses there until we max our license out. That's how it works. If you exclude machines, you can do that here. And I think that covers pretty much everything else. It's away you go and let it have at it. That is Chocolatey. Enjoy.